on today's program, DeMeco Ryans defends Nick Caley after a putrid performance on Monday Night Football up against the Seattle Seahawks. I'll tell you what he had to say. Also, we'll look at a little, that's on me. This should say Week 8 injury outlook. After Week 7, going into Week 8 injury outlook. And then at the end of today's show, I'm going to tell you what is going on at the left guard position with your Houston Texans. But before we get into all that, quick question to the audience. Fill in the blank for me. DeMeco Ryans' seat is blank at the moment. Fill in the blank for me. What do you think it is? Is it hot? Is it cool? Is it scolding? Let me know down in the comments section. DeMeco Ryans' seat is blank at the moment. Let me know down below because according to one of my good buddies, Jonathan Alexander of the Houston Chronicle, it is ice cold right now. This is what he had to say on a recent mailbag article that he put out on the Chronicle. Let's start with Ryans. No, his job is safe past this season. As for Nick Caley and Nick Caserio, I wouldn't feel as confident saying their jobs would be safe at the end of the season. They won't be fired in the coming weeks, but an in-depth evaluation will occur after the final game is played. And I didn't think DeMeco's seat was getting hot. I mean, first 2 seasons for the team, division wins, playoff wins. You're not gonna stray away from that after you had a string of bad coaches before DeMeco was in the building with David Culley, Lovie Smith, and company. DeMeco's not going anywhere this season. And I don't even think, next season necessarily either he's going anywhere anytime soon. But the big thing from that article was what he said after, when he talked about Nick Caserio and he talked about Nick Caley. And it's funny because DeMeco actually came out today and he defended Nick Caley. Following this Texans' awful game, he said, Caley's still my guy. This is exactly what he had to say after that Seahawks loss. It all starts with me. So you guys want to point the finger at somebody, put it on me. That's my job. And ultimately, it's my job to get it fixed. So that's how it'll be. But we're rolling on what we have, and we got to just all do better. You got to coach you better. We got to play better. We got to execute better on game day. And look, as bad as it seems, I tell the guys at the end of the day, we're still one possession from getting that game. And, for good reason, Texans fans were up in arms around Nick Caley because this was the Texans' offensive output up against the Seattle Seahawks. 254 yards, 3.7 yards per play, 198 passing yards, 56 rush yards, and a turnover. And I'll say this, unpopular opinion, I actually kind of like this from DeMeco. I know we're all pissed off at Nick Caley. We all, have our pitchforks ready. But at the end of the day, I think DeMeco's taking a lot of accountability here, saying, you know what? I got to be better as the head coach. I'm the top man in charge. And, maybe Nick Caserio can learn a thing or two from DeMeco Ryans on being a leader. Because I think what DeMeco Ryans is doing here is being a good leader. What Nick Caserio does is pretend like he's the smartest guy in the room and acts like everybody else is dumb for questioning his decisions. That's not what DeMeco's doing here. But at the same time, the offensive output for this Texans team in 2025, it's just been unacceptable. Besides playing a Tennessee Titans team that was, obviously one of the worst teams in the league, and playing basically the Baltimore Ravens JV team with all their injuries on defense, this team has been awful on offense. And slightly a joke, slightly not, PFT from Pardon My Take put this out on Twitter yesterday, and I kind of agree. He seems just as bummed out playing for the Texans as we seem watching the Texans. And that's what we said basically from halfway last year into this year, is that CJ Stroud doesn't seem to have his swagger. He doesn't seem to be enjoying the game, having as much fun. Remember rookie year CJ's dancing all on the sidelines, getting hype with his guy Tank Dell? We don't really see that anymore from CJ. We don't see him having that love for the game, having that passion, having that, fire that he had his rookie season. And the stats from the Seahawks, the tail of the tape, it's not all in the numbers, but if you watched that game, if you stayed up late, the game ended at past midnight for us people on Central Time. This might have been one of the worst CJ Stroud games I've seen in a while. He was off. The rhythm was off. He couldn't get anything going. Overall, CJ was just having a horrible time up against that Seattle Seahawks defense. And the question now is, can he bounce back? Can he, get back to a point where, he's a top in the discussion of a top 10 quarterback, a franchise quarterback, somebody that deserves a long-term extension. Because at this point, if you polled Texans fans, I don't know if Texans fans would want the Texans to extend C.J. Stroud, give him a massive extension like the Jags did with Trevor Lawrence. I still am on the C.J. Stroud bandwagon. I still think he's our franchise guy, and I think with things being fixed, with pieces being, moved around and guys being added to the squad, Stroud can once again be a good quarterback. But where he is right now, the pieces around him, the coaching staff, it's hard to have a lot of faith. Even though C.J. Stroud came out today and said he is more confident than ever and he has faith in where the Texans are going moving forward. Maybe a little leadership speak, maybe something that, DeMeco Ryans rubbing off a little bit on C.J. Stroud, but I do still have faith that Stroud is the guy. Now, coming up in just a moment, we're going to look at the Texans and 49ers injury outlooks going into Week 8. Obviously, some big injuries for your Houston Texans, and the 49ers, they are not coming in unscathed either. They have a lot of injuries that we can talk about on their side. Before we get into that, quick word from our sponsor. Couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our friends over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. It's simple. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player snap projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in, win up to 2,000 times your money today. And we're looking at my lineup. A new feature on the Prize Picks app is the stacks feature. So you can basically do multiple projections for a singular player. I'm doing that with my guy, C.J. Stroud, in this week's lineup. 200.5 passing yards. I'm going the more. And I said earlier on in the season, if they're giving you low rush yards for Stroud, I'm going the more. They've listened to me. They've listened to me a little bit. They raised it to 16.5 rush yards, so I'm going the less on that. Jalen Noel had a great game up against the Seahawks, so I think maybe he'll get a touchdown up against the 49ers. I'm going the more on his rushing and receiving touchdowns. And Mac Jones, longest completion of 34.5. The Texans, they let up a ton of chunk plays up against the Seahawks. I think they're going to tighten up. I don't think Mac Jones is going to air it out as much as Sam Darnold did, so I'm going the less on that. You could use my lineup or go ahead and make your own with our friends over at Prize Picks today. Download the Prize Picks app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right. I was going to put the Texans injury report in, but at the time that I'm filming, I don't see it yet released. So let's just talk about the injuries that we do know. Nico Collins, he was not at practice today. A huge loss if he's out. You didn't watch that Seahawks Week 7 game. Nico Collins exited with a concussion, did not return. Did not look pretty either. Right after the play, he looked visibly shaken up and looked like, after a head injury where you're kind of like this and you're kind of don't know where you are for a second, that's kind of what Nico looked like. So I would doubt that he would be good to go for this next Sunday's matchup, but hopefully he clears concussion protocols throughout the week and will be able to suit up for the Texans this Sunday. But Nico Collins, the main name that you got to look for throughout this week whenever the Texans put out their injury reports. And Aaron Wilson had it first on X. Texans signing wide receiver Jared Wayne to the 53-man roster from the practice squad per league source. Christian Kirk and Nico Collins were both sidelined during today's practice. Kirk dealing with that hamstring once again, and then Nico Collins, obviously the concussion that he suffered up against the Seattle Seahawks. And it's like we're back to square one with the receiving room. We cannot stay healthy. We cannot just have a solid wide receiver core for more than a couple weeks. And I'm just hoping Nico gets back out there. If you're with me, if you want to see Nico Collins out there, I know before that he really didn't have a good game up against the Seahawks either. But I still think Nico is a top receiver, is the Texans' top receiver for sure. And I want to see him back out there on the field. So if he is watching this video, please spam those 12s down below. Show him a little bit of love. If he does come across this video, I want him to see nothing but love in the comment section. So go spam those 12s down below in the comment section. All right, let's go to the 49ers side of things. Bryce Huff dealing with a hamstring injury. It is reported that he will miss maybe 2-3 weeks, so definitely not playing up against the Houston Texans. I talked to Chase Sr., and he told me not playing. Doubtful. Doubtful. 50-50 on Upton Stout. Shout out to the former UNT safety, Upton Stout. And then going on with the injury report, he said 50-50, doubtful, 50-50. So we'll see whether or not those guys are good to go. But like I said, the 49ers, not without their fair share of injuries on their side as well. So something to look at as we progress through the week. Me and Chase Sr., I'm going to try to do another joint preview like I did last week with our Seahawks host, Will Ortner. I think a lot of y'all like that. So I'm going to do that again this week, and then I'll keep you updated throughout the week on Texans Today with all the injury news that you need to know around the Texans and the 49ers. Now, last up, before we get out of here, what in the world are the Texans doing at left guard? Because it is abysmal, the offensive line output, and the fact that they keep on putting Laken Tomlinson in is such a I have no idea what Nick Caley, DeMeco Ryans, Cole Popovich, I don't know who makes the final decision on the snap counts or who's starting or how they're rotating these guards, but make it make sense, because Scruggs, I thought, had clearly been outplaying Laken Tomlinson. The 2 Texans wins this year. Scruggs, snap count at left guard, 80% up against the Titans, 100% up against the Baltimore Ravens. Then you go to week 7, 43%. He plays less than half of the offensive snaps for the Houston Texans. How does that make any sense? In my opinion, you got to start Scruggs the rest of the season, or you got to find a guard in the trade market. Laken Tomlinson does not have it. He, as a fail-safe, if people get injured, fine, okay, but as the guy that you're rolling out there to start, he can't do it. And the fact is, 2 of the most game-defining plays up against the Seattle Seahawks, Laken Tomlinson got his butt whooped. The 3rd and 4th down runs with Woody Marks to the left side, those were behind Laken Tomlinson. Scruggs was out of the game at that point. So you're telling me that somebody who is repeatedly getting whooped, repeatedly getting beat, you're going to, okay, yeah, we'll go 50-50 with starting you. No sense. It makes no sense. You got to start Juice, or if you don't like either of those options, Nick Caserio, pick up the phone and trade for another offensive lineman. Get somebody else in here that can actually block for C.J. Stroud. That's all I have for you on today's show, folks. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, you can do so at Jeremy Chugs. My DMs are always open. And if you made it to the end of today's video, obviously I'm doing something right. So hit that subscribe button for daily Texans content all season